Hello, and welcome to Khyber Shards, a 5th edition actual play show set in the Eberron campaign world. It's Friday, and we are here for a KSA, and we have Eric for the first time in a while.
Hello, it's me.
Hooray! Welcome back.
It's good to be back finally.
Yes, and what a return.
Right? Super chill, no big deal.
Yep. So what happened, Eric? Had this nice plan of infiltration and deception, and all of a sudden it became grab and run.
Yeah, it was honestly me having a realization about the mechanics of the game is kind of what happened, where I thought Disguise Self was a concentration spell for some reason. And then when I looked and saw that it wasn't, I was like, oh, I guess I can cast another concentration spell. And you know what's concentration spell? Suggestion. So yeah, it was one of those things where Pog and Shade were there and things were going well ish, but then I just kind of saw a window. It was like, well, uh I try not to. It's one of those things where like the planning phase, have the discussion, talk through things, but it would have felt very disingenuous to kind of stop the action that moment and turn to Colin and Casey and go, okay, I just had this thought. Let me talk through it with you all and see if you're cool with it.
Sure.
Because, like, yeah, it was very much Ari in the moment going, oh crap, I could do this. I better do it now.
Yeah.
So that was that. And, 10,000 different things could go wrong, which thankfully Silvery Barbs got me out of one of those potential pitfalls. But yeah, so it was fun. It was a terrifying kind of, yeah. I was really happy with it though, because to me, that's one of those things that, like, when I'm looking at my character sheet after the session, I go, that would have been it's like one of the rare instances where I see it during the session. I go, oh, I can do this. And I did it. So yeah.
Well, to the point of improvising on a heist, Darren asks our first question to me, and I'm interested in your thoughts here as well, because you run a lot of D&D and you've run heists as well in lots of systems. Have you ever considered using something like Blade's engagement role to speed up pre-heist conversations? So for anyone who's not familiar with Blades in the Dark, Blades in the Dark is a game that is very much about heists and other capers of that sort. And the way that Blades does it is it tries to skip over the tendency to get into analysis paralysis during the planning of an operation. And the way that it does this is, rather than sit down and plan out all the details of what you're going to do, you pick an approach, which might be assault or infiltration or deception or something like that. And then you can make a limited amount of preparatory checks in Blades in the Dark that can give advantages. And then based on your approach and your preparatory checks, you make an engagement roll, and the level of success you achieve on the engagement roll determines where things start in media res. So if you roll really, really well, then you start having already overcome whatever the first obstacle was, and you're already well on your way. I have never used that in D&D. I would be interested to see what it would look like translated into D&D. The thing I like about it is, of course, we're jumping past the tendency to spend an entire session talking through every possibility.
Yes.
I like that my group of players in Khyber Shards are not inclined to talk through every single possible thing. At least not recently. Sometimes at the very beginning of the campaign, we kind of did that, but most of the time throughout this campaign, that hasn't been too much of a problem. But I've totally been in parties and run for groups of players that have done that. What I don't necessarily like about the engagement role is it feels like it takes away a little bit of the improvisational element, because you guys roll an engagement roll, you roll really well. And so now we start, you're still in my plan, but you're already past the first obstacle. And I wonder whether that might decrease the likelihood of, oh, I just had a crazy good idea, as happened
Yeah.
in this case. This is
Yeah.
a somewhat exceptional case. I just had a crazy good idea is not usually what happens. Usually what happens is, oh, we failed miserably on the first roll.
Yeah.
Time to fight.
What are we going to do? Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. No, I also really like I like any tools that get us past the planning phase as quickly as possible. Because first and foremost, as Philip's saying, it can be arduous from both a player and a GM standpoint. Um as I think even more so as the GM, because if you're at the point where they're planning how they're going to tackle the heist, you have it all ready. Like you
Right.
have come to the session ready to run the heist. And so to sit there for 3 hours while nothing's happening
Right.
is not a fun and engaging session. But the other aspect and what I like about bringing mechanics into it, and I think this is an aspect of tabletop RPGs that I think Philip and I have like drifted apart on a little bit over the years, is Ari has like I think a +3 intelligence modifier. Like Ari is one of the smartest people in Stormreach.
Yeah.
Um, I am not one of the smartest people in Stormreach, and
Right.
so introducing mechanics to reflect a character's the softer um, ability scores of intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Um, Introducing mechanics that allow those to shine to show that like Ari would be really smart at planning a heist, and he's like stolen things before, so like he would be better at it than Eric is. But if we're
Hmm.
just role playing around the table brainstorming, I'm not going to have the ideas that Ari does. So I do like introducing mechanics that overcome that to a certain extent. Um and so I've seen some mechanics that take the modifier scores into account, where like in a heist specifically, you remove the cap on inspiration,
Mm,
and
that's a cool idea.
everybody has points of inspiration based on their intelligence and or wisdom modifier. You get to pick which one, so
Hmm.
that kind of reflects like I planned for this in the form of using inspiration to re-roll or something like that.
I will say
Um,
I do like from Blades in the Dark. The thing that I have occasionally brought into Fifth Edition is the flashback
yes,
mechanic,
I love the flashback.
because that I think gets kind of to what you're pointing out is you might not think of something that we need in the moment, but your character who lives in this world and is part of this world might have. And so when you realize you need it, being able to play a token or push or spend a hit die or whatever resource you want to put to it and
Yeah,
say, ah, of course, Ari thought of that. And this is the solution I came up with a while ago. And, you know,
yeah.
and you
Why
got
wouldn't
it.
I have paid off this person or
Of
brought
course.
this rope? So yeah. But no, I've never specifically considered using the engagement role mechanic from Blades in D&D. It's something that I'm not against, but to answer Darren's question specifically, no.
Yeah. Uh, Laura would like you to reveal what Ari's big dramatic dream was that he wouldn't talk about.
Don't worry about it. Might
Okay.
might come up later.
Yep.
Or it might be nothing. Ari might just be feeling inadequate that his two friends had a crazy adventure while he was just sitting at home.
Emily asks if Halloween was a holiday in Eberron, what do you think Ari would have dressed up as when he was a kid?
I thought I saw this and thought about it, like especially given the background that I've given Ari. Ari would have probably a pretty wide, um, like set of influences in terms of the type of media that he likes. But probably as a kid, I mean, traveling as much as you do, you run into like pirates, and then once airships become a thing, sky pirates. Like I
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
think that as cool as pirates are conceptually in our world, I think they'd be even cooler in Eberron because, like, A, they're active and real, and B, they can fly through the air in airships. So, yeah, pirate probably would have been a pretty frequent Halloween costume for Ari as a kid.
Related to that, Emily would also like to know what Ari's favorite Halloween candy would be?
I think probably Ari strikes me as um somebody that would appreciate in foods specifically simplicity over
Hmm.
extravagance, like one thing done really really well. And so probably like um when you'd have the house that would get like the Dove chocolate as opposed to just a
Mm-hmm.
Hershey or something, and it'd be like, yeah, like just or the Lindt truffles,
Mm-hmm.
or like just the single flavor, simple but a little bit higher quality than what you would normally get. That would be what art would be all about.
I was going to guess Reese's Cups because it's half and half.
Yeah, that
And Laura would like to add, what would Kara's favorite Halloween candy be? I don't know
candy
how to
apples.
answer that. Oh, candy apples. Of course, candy apples. That's so obvious. Why didn't I think of that? Ah. Um, Darren asks, at what point in the heist planning, and it's been a few weeks, so maybe you remember, maybe you
Yeah.
don't, did you figure out exactly what lie Ari would use to try and get in to Aminatu's?
When I pitched to Colin and Casey, when Ari was pitching to Pog and Shade, like I'll present myself as a Stormlord and go out there and try to get his attention. Wilkes showing up in the city was kind of the first thing that just popped into my head as being something that would get Aminatu moving, because it through talking with you, knowing that Aminatu had at least somewhat of an alliance with Wilkes and would
Mm,
rather the devil you know, as it were.
sure.
So Aminatu might be motivated to go make sure that Wilkes stayed on the council as opposed to having a big shakeup. So
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That was a good idea. Like I was every step of the way, I was like, all right, this should be really, really hard. No, that idea is just really good. Yeah, no,
thank you.
that just works. I can't. That just works. Um, yeah, and I mean, even the suggestion thing, like even with a long-lived, powerful character, and then silvery barbs, it just rolled real bad. There's just only so
Yep.
much you can do, and I don't
Yep.
like pulling out like, oh, legendary resistance, wah, wah.
Yeah. Didn't work.
So I tend to ignore legendary resistance on a lot of things. I use legendary actions a lot, but I often ignore the legendary resistance because I don't feel like that feels good.
Yeah.
Um,
I'll do it on
uh,
things in combat like polymorph, where it'll
mhm,
be like, yeah, no, they just save because I
sure.
don't want that. So
Right, because this fight ending with them turning into a bumblebee isn't super fun.
yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and then Emily asks a couple based on the aftermath of the heist, since we got an extra episode in for that.
Yes.
If Ari had known about the amulet keeping Aminatu healthy back when they were first presented with the choice of whether to steal the amulet or steal the Iron Watch, no pun intended, uh, would that have changed which of the two Stormlords he would have preferred to steal from?
No, given that very binary choice, Ari really had no interest in convincing the Steel Watch to join the Stormwatch City Guard. Or like, yeah, that just wasn't anything that seemed appealing to Ari. And Ari doesn't have a whole lot of love for Aminatu or any of the Stormlords for that matter. So,
Sure.
the fact that it makes him not feel great. Okay, yeah, well, you shouldn't have stolen it then, I guess. So,
But Varen's such a cool guy, Eric.
yeah.
How can you not like Varen? Um, and then I guess this is kind of towards me. Is there a reason Ari can't write a letter to the Forgotten Prince and send it over using Remembrance? He could do that. I mean, that is totally mechanically, yes, that would be easy to do. Two reasons that Ari might choose not to. One, the Forgotten Prince told him that this is not a waste disposal service.
Yes.
And two, you could totally do it. It's a very significant crapshoot as to whether or not a piece of paper floating down into the palace into the hoard would be picked up by the Forgotten Prince or would
Yeah.
lay there for all eternity unread. But you could totally do that in hope. I mean, that's totally a thing that could be done with Remembrance.
Yeah.
And I really like this question. If there was a live action adaptation of Khyber Shards, who would you want to play Ari?
So if this show was coming out like 10, 15 years ago, it would be Oscar Isaac, because
Mm-hmm.
he's like the person that was in my head when I was like first thinking, like a young Oscar Isaac. Um, but now when I saw Emily's question, thinking about it, I really like Dev Patel. I like the idea of Dev Patel
Ooh,
playing
that
Ari.
is
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
Dev Patel would be really good. Would be a really good Ari. I like.
yeah.
I like that a lot too. That's that's good. That's fun. I hope that question crops up cyclically because
Yeah.
that's a fun game to play. We used to play that in college perpetually,
Hmm.
fan
Yeah.
casting things. Uh, awesome. Well, that is all of our questions today. So this is a quick one. Excellent questions, but
Yes.
we got through them. Thank you all so much for these questions. We have a great time with these. If you'd like to submit questions, you can do that over on our Discord, which you can find in the description below, along with all of our other social media, all down there, as well as a link over to the Geek Pantheon YouTube, where you find lots of things that Eric is making. Anything exciting coming up, particularly?
Um, Pathfinder has the remaster happening, so doing some stuff on that coming up. And then there's a new RPG, well, new-ish RPG called Wild Sea that I really like. That I'm going to talk about some of the mechanics I like about that. So yeah, that's what's coming
Awesome.
up.
So look for those over on the Geek Pantheon's YouTube. In addition to seeing lots of content from D&D and other RPGs that Eric has already posted over there. New episodes of Khyber
Indeed.
Shards drop on Mondays. New Khyber Shards answers on Fridays. And until next time, thanks for rolling with us.